So are you not concerned about the secondary week 1 against Graham Mertz then? Because I heard there's no opponent you're too scared of for them.
Quite frankly, I was talking about this on a podcast yesterday. It's hard to say. Like, it's a cop-out answer, but, like, Mertz is a really capable passer. He's a very, accurate guy. He could definitely pick apart that secondary if he has a good game. But, if these guys are legit, when I say it's a question mark, it means I don't know. It means they might be really good. It means they might not be. It's hard to say when, until you see him go against an opponent and in front of 90,000 people in the swamp. That's an exciting atmosphere. And, they could get picked apart or they could succeed. I really, I hate to hedge my bets, but I really don't know yet.
Adam Lichtenstein with us. He covers the Hurricanes for the Sun Sentinel. All right, Adam, Billy Napier and Mario Cristobal are on paths pretty much together, right? Because they started at the same time, and they've both had issues while coaching as far as what fans want to critique. How do Miami fans feel about Cristobal after the way last season went?
I think they're still overall pretty supportive of Cristobal. Recruiting really well helps. He had top 10 classes the last 2 years. He's got a top 10 class for 2025 right now. So when you're recruiting well, fans can see, okay, there's something going on here. We're building. Like, I think this is the year where, they want to see things start to pay off because they went 5-7 in 2022, which was just, I think, disappointing by any measure. Last year, they improved. They win 7 games. They make a bowl. Could have won 8 games if they take a knee against Georgia Tech. And if they won 8 games, I think most people would consider that a solid season for development and stuff. But I think with all the transfers they got this year with Cam Ward, other guys they brought in like Damian Martinez and, some offensive linemen, other defensive players, like people want this to be the year they take a big step forward. Whether, if you ask different people, that might mean different things, whether that means competing for an ACC title, whether that means making a 12-team playoff, like all those things I think are within reach for this team. It's a matter of whether they execute on the field, stay healthy and all that jazz. They're capable of being a really good team. If they fall short and maybe if they win 7 games again, most people are going to be pretty upset, I think, with the talent on the roster. If they win 10 or 11 games and are in the ACC title game and in the playoff hunt, I think people will be, cheering, celebrating Mario, and he'll earn a lot of leash. So kind of we'll see how this year plays out. I think Billy Napier might be on a shorter leash entering this season.
Great segue, Adam, who you can find on X at AB Lichtenstein. Adam, you're in a very unique situation as we talk about that game going down in the swamp in 53 days, because not only are you the Canes beat writer for the Sun Sentinel, but you did previously once upon a time work at the Alligator in Gainesville. And so this matchup in particular, because you're close to home on both fronts, what matchup for you will be the biggest X factor between Miami and Florida?
I think the two that'll really determine the game. One, we already talked about with Graham Mertz versus the UM secondary. If the UM secondary, steps up and they, then I think Florida might be in trouble. If Graham Mertz can kind of pick them apart and, get the passing game going, I think then UF will be cooking with gas and they probably have the advantage there. And then the other will probably just be, Cam Ward and the offense versus the crowd. It's going to be 90,000 people. It's going to be hot. 3:30 kickoff in the swamp in August. It's going to be very, I hope everyone's very hydrated in the stands because it's going to be merciless heat. But just see how this group in their first game, all together, a lot of them haven't played a game for Miami yet. Like I said, like Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, the running back, a couple of linemen who, might not have been starters for the team last year, how they handle coming out of the gate in front of 90,000 people screaming in the swamp. Because I'll never fault a college team. There's no preseason. I'll never fault a team for scheduling, a G5 opponent or an FCS opponent in week 1 because so many mistakes happen that, in week 1 that get corrected over the course of a year. Like, it's a cliche, but, people say that the biggest leap comes from week 1 to week 2 because you correct all the things that maybe you were doing wrong to start. You look at Florida last year, all the mistakes they had against Utah, sending out people with the same jersey number on the same play and stuff like that, lining up, not lining up enough players. Mistakes happen in week 1, and I think this game will be tight enough that 1 or 2, mistakes at the wrong times are gonna really hurt you. And when you got 90,000 people breathing down your neck and screaming at you, like, that makes things tough.
It certainly does. Of course, it's called the Swamp because only Gators get out alive. We shall see if the Hurricanes do in August. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to doing it again sometime.
Absolutely. Adam Lichtenstein covers the Hurricanes down there in Miami for the Sun Sentinel. And yeah, I was glad you asked that question, Taylor, because I was going to absolutely ask. You don't think there's a quarterback who can carve them up. But I also do wonder, is Miami preparing only for Graham Mertz? Is Miami also preparing for DJ Lagway? Like, they have to figure certainly that out. And
I would say they're trying to get a young secondary together. I would say that's the focus right now, from what Adam said and from what the paper reads.
Yeah.
Again, I think it is an underrated loss because we've been so focused on the acquisition, or the rather transfer of Cam Ward, that we forget
and everything they did up front defensively.
Right, exactly. That they went to the portal, and we didn't even get into I'm going to butcher their last name, the Mauigoa brothers. Like, we didn't even get into them. I think Francisco, the senior, the transfer, I think he could be a top 5 defensive player in the ACC.
Yeah.
Because we saw it in flashes last year after he transferred in. And of course, his brother was a top 10 recruit along the offensive line. And so I think that, again, it's actually kind of similar to our conversation about the NFL. We've been so focused on the splash signings and the transfer portal and this, that, and the other, that perhaps we're forgetting about the losses to the NFL draft and to graduation that could force some young players who certainly are talented, but force them into playing time a little bit earlier than they otherwise would have down in Miami.